News Radio.
Are you ready for a new experience? To see life from another point of view? New hope, new expression, new joy. This is your radio hour. Welcome to Viewpoint with Father John.
And welcome, friends. You're tuned to NBC Radio, KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or you can listen from anywhere in the world at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reed. As a reminder, you can follow us on both Facebook and Instagram. Just go to Viewpoint with Father John and definitely click like, okay? You like me, I'll like you, and we'll like each other, and we'll get along just fine. But I get a lot of messages from people on the message centers for that, and I always enjoy hearing from you. And also, we're on Twitter at Father John Reed. Father is spelled out completely, so it's not abbreviated. And Reed, of course, is the proper and sophisticated R-E-I-D, which is Irish. And in case you didn't know, there's only two kinds of people in the world, Irish and those that wish they were. Speaking of that, all of God's children are endowed with extraordinary purpose and ability. I'm on a quest to help as many as possible in fully realizing their divinely inspired potential. Disposing a false narrative and embracing genuineness inspires clarity of purpose. My role is to help overcome self-imposed limitations in realizing one's spiritual potential. And folks, as we talk about each week, I'd like you to consider Claremont Pharmacy to be your pharmacy. I'll tell you that Nikki Ho is the owner of that, Dr. Nikki Ho, and she has a wonderful establishment. They take care of all of my pharmaceutical needs, and I'm very grateful to them, particularly with all the medical stuff I'm doing lately. They've been there and absolutely supportive. And if you want a pharmacist that is very supportive along with the staff, that you're not a number, you're a person that they care about, go to Claremont Pharmacy. It's on the corner of Indian Hill Boulevard and Arrow Highway in the People's Republic of Claremont, as we like to say. And I want to tell you about a great service that if you are having a wedding or a special get-together, you definitely want to use Lakeside DJ Services. That's our good buddy Frank, who's our sound engineer, the best engineer in the business. And he has a photo booth, and it's great. He's been taking pictures. You have to bring your own clothes. Because he won't do those kinds of pictures. But you can come and have a great time. He's wonderful. And you can reach out to him at LakesideDJServices.com. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. And a reminder of my good friend Glenn Kirshner, who has Justice Matters on YouTube. Look, straight information is important. And that's what Glenn does. Glenn was a federal prosecutor for 30 years. He was a JAG lawyer for the Army. He was a prosecutor there. And he tells it like it is. He doesn't spin it one way or the other. He just gives you facts and good legal opinion on it. And he lets you know what's opinion and what is fact. That's so important. So, having said all that, just a couple of personal notes. As many of you know, on Tuesday, I did have a heart surgery. Yes, I'm supposed to be in bed, not here, but, you know, I'm Irish, so we're here. But I'm moving slow. But the reason I mention is I want to thank everyone for your prayers. I do believe prayers make a difference in lifting people up, and I've had a lot of support from people. A lot of you have reached out to me on the different social platforms of Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I just want you to know, I was going to say, I want you to know I take it to heart, but I think that might be redundant. So I do have written proof. I have a heart for those of you who wondered. And I will be okay. I got to do some life style changes. But, you know, we're adapting. I've cleared my schedule for the weekend, so I will be staying around the house, which for me, as some of you who really know me know that that's difficult. But I just want to speak out and say thank you for your emotional and spiritual and loving support. It means the world to me. Tonight we have a dear friend with us again, Jill Johnson Young, who I was going to say young Jill Johnson.
We could do that, but not many people would agree with you.
And she's the author of the book, The Rebellious Widow, which is a wonderful read. I have it on my table, and I've read it, and I've really been moved by the wisdom in this book. But not just the wisdom, the heartfelt experience, because it's not just written from book knowledge. It's written from personal experience dealing with these things, not just, studying other people dealing with it. And so, Jill, welcome back to the show, and thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I was so excited when you called and said, could I come?
Yeah, I'm going to have you turn that mic a little closer to you.
Okay. How's that?
There we go.
All right.
As my English teacher would say, that's more better.
There we go.
So I want to talk a little bit. Well, let's digress a little bit. For people who haven't heard you before that, when you've been on the show, share with them the reason that you wrote this book and kind of the premise of it, because I think it's going to be important to what we're going to talk about tonight.
Sure. So I wrote The Rebellious Widow because in addition to being a hospice social worker for many, many years and helping lots of families make those transitions and working with people who are on the other side on grief, I also have been married and widowed twice. And my first wife, Linda, we were 23 years together, and she had breast cancer the first 10 years we were together, and she beat it. She died without breast cancer. She was really proud of that. But because of the breast cancer chemo, she died ultimately of pulmonary fibrosis, which turns your lungs to basically a dry loofah sponge, which is not what lungs are supposed to be.
Right.
Her heart also started getting involved too, so she would understand where you are with that whole shortness of breath and heart thing right now. And while she was on hospice, she got to know one of her hospice nurses exceptionally well. They became really close friends. They hung out. I didn't even know they were doing it. But she and Casper, who, yes, is named after the friendly ghost, who was, in fact, our hospice nurse.
So she's pretty transparent.
She was very transparent. Yes, she was. Yeah. and she had a changeable face. Yes, she did. And they, by the time Linda was dying, she said, Casper, you got to come back and marry Jill. And Casper told her to be quiet, and I told her to be quiet, and she told everybody. She made our minister promise to be the one to marry us. And, for the record, folks, we were not involved. She was the nurse. I was the wife. That's how it went.
And then you played doctor?
And then after we played nurse.
Okay.
But yes, Linda ultimately died, and Casper was the one who pronounced her. And shortly thereafter, Casper and I became a secret item and then a more public item. And I broke all the widow rules. And you're not supposed to do that because then people get a little bit pissy. And then after that, about 3.5 years later, Casper died of Lewy body dementia. And I didn't have nearly the support system I did before because people vote with their feet when you break the widow rules.
Yes.
And then in that time period, somebody else melted into our lives and helped take care of Casper and sent lots of supportive little presents and things. And that was Stacy, the funeral director, who met with Jill and Linda to plan Linda's service and also took care of Casper after her death. Was there to remove both of them from our home, and now Stacy and I are married, and so now I am the grief therapist married to the mortician. So yes, that is the story, and I am the one to die for. I've just got to tell you. And no, Stacy did. Yes, she did get some questions about marrying a double widow, but she did assure everyone that she's the one who did the death certificates. She saw the causes of death, and she was quite comfortable. Nobody had been fed anything of a poisonous nature.
No flavored Gatorade, huh?
No flavored Gatorade and no soup made out of poisonous leaves. No oleander soup.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you ran around. You ran around me on that one. I was trying to go through my mind all the different.
Which one that was? Yes. And the funny thing is, we sold our home 2 years ago, moved closer to my mom, who has dementia. And there's an oleander bush in the backyard. Oh. And I looked at the gardener and said, that has to go, like right now.
Yeah, because if you cut it right, it looks like a bay leaf.
Yeah, there'll be no rumors in this household. There will be none of that. So, yes. There was a time, though, that Stacy got super sick and had double pneumonia, and she had a high fever. And she looked at me and she said, "Are you sure you didn't give me something?"
Yeah. Now, for some of the people listening, You may be shocked at our levity, but you know what? It's healthy, because if you can't come to grasp, death is inevitable. Every one of us will die,
It's our one universal experience.
and all of us will know somebody who dies. But if you can get to the point where you can have humor about it, which takes a while a lot of times, that shows you are healing. And I'll give you an example of that. In the early days of Alcoholics Anonymous, someone who was very helpful to many of the alcoholics was a Roman Catholic nun by the name of Sister Ignatius. And Ignatius wasn't an alcoholic. She's just a nun with a bad attitude that loved drunks. Made her perfect. And so she's working at town hospital, and one of the other patients comes to her to talk about a patient that was in his group and asks, are you going to let him go home? Are you going to release him, discharge him? And she says, he's not ready yet. Well, he has the material memorized. He's working with others. He speaks incredibly well in group. He's not ready yet. So they go back and forth a few times until finally he asked the right question. Why do you say he's not ready yet? And Sister Ignatius says this, because he hasn't laughed.
Yep.
And until you have that first real laugh, recovery has not taken hold. You've just memorized information.
Right.
And so that's why when we're laughing, it's a sign of recovery. You know, and I'm going to digress for a minute, for just a moment, for something you talked about, how people will vote with their feet because you dared to live life. And it's because the 5 rules of society in America is rule number 1, have nothing wrong with you.
Right.
Rule number 2 is if you have something wrong with you, get over it quick.
And don't talk about it.
Yep. Rule number 3 is if you can't get over it quick, pretend that you did.
Mm-hmm.
And rule number 4 is if you can't pretend that you did, then drop out. And rule number 5 is if you're not going to drop out, at least look ashamed. And for us to be healthy people, we have to break all 5 rules on a daily basis. And so that's what we're talking about. Jill had broken the 5 rules. She dared to live life. So that gives you a little background.
And I wrote the book because I wanted other people, particularly widows, but also other people, to know what you need to do to help take care of someone who's at end of life,
Right.
and has chronic illness, what the dying process looks like, because so few people actually know it. I worked for hospice for a long time. I was married to nurses. It's intuitive for me. I'm used to it. Most people don't know that stuff.
Yeah.
And I wanted people to have a plan for how to move through grief and into recovery and a new life, instead of buying into that nonsense which says you grieve as long as you loved someone, and if you stop grieving and recover, then you didn't love them enough, which isn't true.
Exactly right. And, when I was getting ready for this heart surgery, now I didn't have any fear that I was going to die, but just in case I did, I had a little talk with Gabby. I said, I want you to promise me that if something happens, I said, I'm not expecting it, but if something does, that you go on with life, you'll find someone that could be in an absolute wonderful love relationship with you and have a joyous life. Because that was important to me. And with that, it gave me the freedom that I didn't have to worry about that going into the surgery. Again, I
Right.
wasn't trying to predict that something was going to happen, but just in case it did, it was a peace of mind knowing that she'll be okay.
It's finishing that part of the relationship in case you were not there when you came back, right? And so she was finished with that, and she had permission to go start that new life. Yes, she would have to grieve for a while, of course, as we all will, but she also needs to have that permission to be able to do what she needs to do.
Yeah, and I mentioned to her, look, if something happens, because in this type of surgery, a lot of times people, about 5 out of 1,000, will have a major stroke where they're never the same again. And I said, if that happens and I become bound to a nursing home, I want you to go have a life. Okay? Nice if you come see me, but there's a good chance if it's that kind of stroke, I won't even know. So it takes pressure off me to know that you're okay and that you're happy, because I don't want to be a millstone around your neck. And, when you could talk about these things, you can talk about other things. But talking about things, we got to go to our first commercial break because we have some important stuff we're going to talk about tonight. And so you're listening to Viewpoint with Father John, and we'll be back in 90 seconds.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
This segment is sponsored by Dickey's Barbecue, now in Yucaipa at 33562 Yucaipa Boulevard in the Vaughn Shopping Center. Dickey's Barbecue, where you can get sauced with 5 delicious barbecue sauces. For the holidays, there's the Dickey's Holiday Feast options. Everything you need for a festive gathering with delicious, hassle-free meals that you just heat and serve, whatever your needs are. They have the perfect option, including the complete feast, the dinner feast, or the single holiday meats and sides, available for pickup and delivery from Dickey's. And there's no charge for kids on Sundays. In fact, the kids get free ice cream. Dickey's Barbecue, now open in Yucaipa at 33562 Yucaipa Boulevard in the Vaughn Shopping Center. Dickey's Barbecue, whatever your needs are.
And welcome back. You're tuned to NBC Radio, KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM. Or, of course, you can listen from anywhere in the world at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reed, and shout out to the people all around the world that do tune in. And I do get your letters. It blows me away every time I get an email from someone in Brazil or Panama. It's neat. And so I'm glad that I'm grateful that you take the time to follow the show, and I want to give a shout out to Frank, who's doing good over there in the booth. He's waving at me. You can use all the fingers, and I'm just kidding. He Frank's not like that. Anyhow, but you don't know that because you can't see him, and that gives me the advantage. But we're talking to Jill Johnson-Young, LCSW, licensed clinical social worker, which is one of my favorite for therapy. You guys are real psychotherapists.
We are indeed.
And I know some therapists that are just psycho. So it works out well.
I'm not going to guarantee that's not me too, but it's okay.
Well, it's like in 12-step, you got to self-identify.
Right?
Self-diagnose on that one. But one of the reasons I wanted to have her back is there's a very important topic that I hope that you'll pay close attention to when we talk about it tonight, because in my mind, and particularly with the experience I've had since becoming ill with the stuff I deal with, I think a lot of bad things can happen. One thing is well-meaning people giving bad medical advice. And where there are some good things on YouTube, there's some really misleading bad stuff as well.
Just plain false stuff.
False stuff. And, I've seen it, like when COVID came out, there's that one that was going around that was talking about the real thing of COVID and here's how you really treat it and stuff. And it was pure baloney.
Right.
No offense to baloney, because some baloney is kind of good.
But off your list now.
Off my list. And I've had people send me these natural things that will cure whatever I have. Now, look, I do believe in natural medicine as well. I believe in holistic medicine, which includes everything. But I believe in evidence-based treatment. And I've had people send me stuff that if I do this kind of juicing, everything I have will go away. And they don't even know what I'm diagnosed with.
Right.
And I know they mean well.
It's coming from the heart. They want to help. They don't know what else to do.
And in many cases, it can be dangerous advice, as well-meaning as it is. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I'm sure you've had some experience with this. And folks, we're not talking about this to put anybody down. We're talking about this to lift people up.
And to protect people to some degree.
And that's my point. So I know you had a story about some of this that had taken place in your experience. Would you share it and talk a little bit about this?
Oh, I've seen this so many times, and I'm so glad we're talking about this tonight because it is really hard when someone is ill with anything, much less terminally ill, or for the caregiving family to be told, but you just have to do this. You just have to do that. And you got to figure if someone is at the point where they're on hospice, they've done all the things, and they've now decided that they're done doing all the things. It goes right up there with telling them to keep fighting. Fighting is not a nice term for people who are terminally ill. Yeah. Stop it. So, yeah.
Like we were lazy, so we got sick.
Right. And we asked for this, and we're not trying hard enough. No. There comes a time, right? So when my first wife was dying, she was actually only in the hospital bed for 7 days. She walked down the stairs the Friday before she died, and she said, I think I'm going to try this bed out. And then she just didn't get back out of it. And a week and 4 hours later, she was dead.
Right.
And while she was in the bed, one of our extended family members came over, and she totally believed in this magic light up laser thingy.
Right.
And she had gone to all the seminars, and she was someone who was relatively low income and had invested probably $3,000 in this absurd technology. And I'm saying absurd because the guy who put it together is now doing federal time for larceny and embezzling because people bought the stuff, and he lost his medical license in 2 countries. So clearly it's absurd. But she walked up to Linda in the hospital bed in front of a room full of people, including our kids, and said, if you had just let me use this earlier, we could have cured your lungs and you wouldn't be dying now.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, she didn't mean harm. She was trying to say, just let me do it. And I wanted to punch her, which was not appropriate because she was the mother of a childhood friend, and she was someone that I normally respected. But in this moment, the respect was gone. And the harm she was doing, and the fact that I had to then explain to my kids that this wasn't real, right, and that she meant well, but she didn't know what else to say. There's those moments. When my second wife was dying, one of our hospice nurses, a hospice nurse of all people,
right,
came in with, and forgive me, Father, holy water that she'd collected from a whole bunch of different sites,
right,
and candles, and she said, I
have a collection.
Yeah. You can't light candles when someone's on oxygen. Bad idea. But there she was, lighting candles in the room next to the oxygen line and sprinkling holy water on my wife, who was not Catholic, believed in angels but not God,
right,
and had no belief in holy water unless other people wanted it for their needs. Right. And she said, we're going to just do this until we cure her. And I said, her brain is melted from Lewy body. You're not going to cure her. You're just irritating both of us right now. I need you to stop.
Right.
And the irony of it is she's now gone too.
Well, along with that, in 2011, a chiropractor broke my neck.
Not helpful.
No, it wasn't. Women are always willing to wring my neck. This one did it. There was someone who was actually on this network at one time who was a psychic. She held herself out as a psychic, a Jewish psychic. And when I'm getting ready to go in for surgery, she says to me, you don't need surgery, you just need some of these candles that I have. That she was going to sell to me for a very
steep
high
price.
Yes. And
it's always expensive, this stuff.
well, yeah, and a little backstory. I probably shouldn't say this, but it's never stopped me before. Within the last couple of years or so, because she's had me on a couple of different programs in the past, she wanted me to write a letter of recommendation for her, and I wouldn't do it because that's quackery.
It's not helpful. It does harm.
Yeah,
and it minimizes your real injury.
Yeah, and she was on that I think it's ripoff.com or something like that. And there's complaints all over about how she'd done this to other people, but also when people complain because this didn't work, her becoming a telephone terrorist is the only way I can put it, screaming at them. And if they dare tell anybody what they said about her, that she's going to sue them. And it's heartbreaking. Here's someone, when I needed surgery, I had 3 ruptured discs in my neck. Trying to, it's a charlatan. If I light this candle, it will magically heal. Now, there are some real psychics out there. But this is not what they do.
No, they don't tell people not to have surgery when they have a neck that needs to be fixed because it's been broken.
Yeah.
There's just so many people who have so many ideas.
And the reason I mention it, and I'm sorry for cutting you off there, is because well-meaning people sometimes hear these things, and they will try to pass it on to someone who is dying or is terminally ill, which is saying the same thing in a way, but at early stages, but also late stages. Because some of these people are such great salespeople that the person offering this to a loved one doesn't know that it's a con.
Right.
Hence the word confidence person. They gain your confidence, and you don't know that they're selling you garbage.
Up the river.
Yes. Well, all through history, there's been people with these special mineral springs and stuff. There was one guy, I'm trying to think of the name of a place, but it was a whole wellness center. And people would come from all over the world to have this treatment from it. And he would milk them for every penny and then let them die in excruciating pain because he wouldn't even let them have pain medicine. Mm-hmm. So...
yeah, it's unfortunate. And the other impact it has on the dying person is it makes them feel like, A, they didn't try hard enough.
Right.
They didn't do enough investigating. They're letting their family down. They feel shamed.
Yes.
It's hard to be chronically ill and terminally ill because people do a lot of shaming. And
Yes.
some people don't even know they're doing it when they do things like looking at someone who's very ill and doesn't look well and says, "You look so good.
Right.
So glad to see you." And then they feel like they have to look good. And then they take what precious little energy they have left in their energy bank to try and look good when they don't feel good. And they really need to invest that energy with people that they want to spend time with. So it just takes people apart when we do these things. And we need to let the person who's dying and the family around them, we need to honor their choice, their decisions, where they are, and support them in that.
And on the other side of that, on sort of that coin, you could have people who are very sick on the inside, but on the outside, it doesn't show so much. One of the things I get from people would say, "Well, you don't look sick.
Oh, yeah.
You look very healthy." And it's like saying, "Well, you're not really sick." It discounts
It does
what's going
discount
on.
what's going on, yes.
And that's really painful. It's like saying, "Well, you must be lying about being sick."
Or how sick you really are.
Right.
Right? So Linda died on April 2nd. Her birthday was March 14th.
Oh.
And our church does a birthday blessing once a month. And it happened to fall on her actual birthday.
Wow.
She hadn't been to church in weeks. She hadn't had the energy to do it. But she got herself up, got dressed. We got her in the car. And she got to the front of the church. And we sat in the front row so she wouldn't have to go very far. Because you have to understand, folks, when you can't breathe and your heart's wearing out, there's not much energy left. And you gain a bunch of fluid because you can't get rid of it.
Amen.
So they called her up for a birthday blessing, and the girls walked her up, one of each of our daughters on each side.
Nice.
And people leaned up to me from the back and said, "Can't she just walk by herself? She looks so good."
Ooh.
No, she'll collapse. Please don't say that when she gets back here. And then during the blessing, the minister said, "And you're looking so good. I can't wait to see you here next year."
And again, these are well-meaning people.
Yeah, they just didn't know what to say and how to do it, and couldn't accept that death was coming.
That was just as we are so afraid to talk about death. And one I get all the time, we'll talk about more about this after break, which we still have 5 minutes, don't worry.
Okay.
Is that expect the miracle thing. And,
Shoot me now.
And I get this on Facebook all the time, people saying, Jesus is going to heal you and all this. Look, I love Jesus. But, Jesus had to die for there to be a resurrection.
Right?
So obviously he doesn't have an issue with death.
Yeah. He kind of said, "I know what's coming. Let me just do this."
Yeah.
Which is what terminally ill people say.
And let me show you that this is not the end, that, you can go through this. So it's like going to Disneyland. You wait your entire life to get on the ride, and everyone's trying to pull you out of line.
Right?
Oh, that was a great analogy. I hope Walt Disney doesn't send me a note. So,
He's already on the other side. We don't need to worry about it.
I
Unless
know.
there's a psychic here.
yeah, but see, it would be a great thing to show on air. Hey, look what I got.
Right.
But anyhow, I'm being terrible right now, which is usual for me. They said maybe in a few months I'll turn 13, but
I'm doubting it.
But yeah, me too. But on a very serious note, well-meaning people, when they say things like that, oh, you're going to be cured, Jesus is going to do this, you just got to have more faith. I'm praying for you, so I know it's going to change. Is saying that if you're sick, you obviously don't have faith.
Right. And if you die, it's because you didn't have enough, and you didn't believe enough, and you weren't enough. And that's not fair either.
Right.
And that's not for any one of us to say.
Right. And it makes death a taboo.
It does. It puts it back in that we don't talk about it category.
Yeah.
Where 200 years ago we talked about it. 100 years ago we talked about it. And then we sort of made it so nice and clean and neat. And we found all these miracle cures, with medicine.
Right.
And it was a miracle because we didn't have penicillin before that.
That's right.
Right? My mom has heart damage because she was born in a time when you didn't get to treat some of the things, right?
Right.
And so, yes, that's miraculous. But when it comes to somebody being end of life with whatever terminal illness, and there are a lot, there's lots of ways you could die. You need to be able to support that person and that family in walking through that part and not trying to redirect them and tell them that they're doing it wrong.
Exactly.
Because it's not fair.
We're going to go to commercial just a couple minutes early, but the reason we're going to do it is because on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about what are some of the things you can say to people and the families who are going through this. So you're listening to Viewpoint with Father John on KCAA Radio. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org, www.4pfp as in personal funeral planning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
This segment is sponsored by Dickey's Barbecue, now in Yucaipa at 33562 Yucaipa Boulevard in the Vaughn Shopping Center. Dickey's Barbecue, where you can get sauced with 5 delicious barbecue sauces. For the holidays, there's the Dickey's Holiday Feast options. Everything you need for a festive gathering with delicious, hassle-free meals that you just heat and serve, whatever your needs are. They have the perfect option, including the complete feast, the dinner feast, or the single holiday meats and sides, available for pickup and delivery from Dickey's. And there's no charge for kids on Sundays. In fact, the kids get free ice cream. Dickey's Barbecue, now open in Yucaipa at 33562 Yucaipa Boulevard in the Vaughn Shopping Center. Dickey's Barbecue, whatever your needs are.
And welcome back. You are tuned to NBC Radio, KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or you can listen from anywhere in the world at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reed. My guest this evening is Jill Johnson-Young, and she's at LCSW. And we're laughing a little bit. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, we're having some fun during the break, being absolutely inappropriate. More her than me, but that's why I love to have her. She's not just a guest; she's a good friend, a dear friend. And so we've talked about a lot of things to be aware of, to not do, particularly giving. I can't tell you how many people have sent me special teas that if I drink this tea, I'll be cured, and hams are cured. So I should have said that. Someone's probably going to send me some honey.
Never take a mortician to a steak place where they have aged steaks, because she will look at them and say, "You're charging more for decomp?"
Oh,
yes.
My goodness. Oh.
Sorry. Took a little easy railed, but I thought you should hear that one after the ham
Never
thing.
give that material to a 12-year-old.
No.
Because I'll go to a restaurant somewhere just for the
Just
opportunity.
to say it, yes.
So we're going to talk about some things you can say to the person. Well, we call them the IP, the identified patient, but also the family who they're also a patient, just not identified.
It's a family unit. That's the system you're working with.
That's the point. So what are some things we can say to them?
First of all, what you say is, "I'm here for you. I will do whatever you need. I'm seeing some things that you might need around the house. If you'd let me take care of them, I'd be happy to.
Well,
I honor you for what you're choosing."
Let me go back for just a second for what you just said, because I agree with it. But only say that if you mean it.
Yeah, don't say, "Just call me if you need something." That's a stupid thing to say.
And
Have some specifics in mind.
right. And also, if you did say you're going to do it,
Get it done.
don't become a no-show.
Right. And if you say you're coming to the funeral, make sure you show up,
That's right.
because people will know.
Yes.
You may not think they know, but they're looking for you.
So we tell them, you tell them, "I'm here for you, and here's some things
I
see
can
you might
do
need."
for you to help you.
Okay.
And you can also say, "I'll bet you're hearing all kinds of stuff. I'll bet you're being given all kinds of advice, and I'm not going to give you any of it.
Amen.
And I'm not going to give any to your family either. But with your permission, I might make them laugh a little bit, or take the kids out for pizza if there are kids or grandkids in the house." Don't try to question. Make sure that you're telling them you support them. Don't question the morphine. Say, "I'm so glad that you've got meds and you've got a hospice you trust and you're getting the care that you need.
Right.
It looks like maybe there's a lot going on here. Let me stay overnight so you can get some rest. I promise I'll wake you up if there's a problem." Do those things. Don't question. Don't promise miracle cures. You need to be the one who's supporting them in where they are. And to run interference if you hear someone about to offer all those other things. Even if you're just seeing the chatter online,
Right.
someone posts something that says, "This is what's going on," and immediately the clusters arrive with, "Try this, try that, try this, try that." And then you're the one who intercedes and says, "I am so glad that you have made the decisions that you've made, and I support you in what you're doing. And I'm really sorry if you're hearing stuff that's upsetting to you right now, because you don't deserve that. Your family deserves unconditional support with where you are right now."
Yes. And I found that if either the patient or the family says something that's funny, laugh.
It's organic, and actually we have research that shows that families who are on hospice who have people who engage them with laughter, not
Yes.
inappropriate laughter, folks, not forced humor, but, tell me about, your favorite thing that you guys like to do together that, made you all smile. If you can do that for them and help them to laugh and find those moments and cue into those moments, then you've given them a gift. And that
Yes.
carries through in those final moments that the family can remember those things that you've just helped them bring up. Those families also grieve better and grieve in a shorter time. It's faster, it's not harder, they do better. And if you're on a hospice team, if you are listening to what their needs are emotionally and you're able to laugh with them, they're going to trust you more to do grief with them.
When I used to work with Foothill AIDS Project, we had people that we would call a PAL, personal active listener.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd actually train people how to be a personal active listener. An active listener is somebody who's listening, not looking to give advice, but just listening because, correct me if I'm wrong on this, a lot of times when they're talking, they just want to express this and be heard. They don't want advice.
They don't want to hear what you would do. They don't want to hear what they should do. They don't want to hear what they should do for their family.
Right.
They've made their decisions. And if they haven't, and they have questions, you can say, if you have anything that you want me to get for you so that you can do whatever it is you need to do, I will do that. But I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Yes. Yes.
They need that kind of support, not to be told.
One thing I found helpful, I'd love to get your insight on this, is just every once in a while to just look them straight in the eye and with every bit of sincerity to just say, I love you. Period.
Until it makes it weird and uncomfortable.
Right.
Say the words and encourage other people to do it.
Exactly.
Right? And be prepared to support whatever it is that person needs. And if they need to meet with someone that you don't particularly like, you don't get to vote.
Right.
They need to meet with them. That's their decision. Even if it's someone who hurt them, they're trying to finish something up.
Right.
You support them in doing that. That's your role. Because you're not the one dying.
I was
This
just
is
gonna
their
say.
end of life. They get it their way.
That's right. And my grandmother said, always be sincere, even if you don't mean it.
Especially in those moments, right? It's so good to see you, this so-and-so that I know was a horrible person to my family member. Come on in. I'm glad you're here. You mean none of that, but the patient needed to hear you say it.
Right.
And you say it, right?
Yes. Because it's about the patient. It's not about us.
It's not. And if the patient calls and wants to see you, please buck up and go.
Yeah. And it's not up to the patient to make us feel better.
No, or the family.
Right.
The family is there. They are, if you consider that they're in the center of a ring,
Yes.
and then there are all the other rings outside, all the energy should go inward, and none of it should come outward because they don't. First of all, a dying person doesn't have any energy.
Correct.
Chronically ill people don't have a lot of energy much of the time. I'm certain that you're taking some naps that you didn't used to take, or
Oh, yeah.
or Gabby's telling you to take naps that you're not taking.
Well, we it's usually my idea because if it's not, it might involve duct tape. But
Right, right. Because when you're tired, when your body's not working well, you get tired. And when you're sick and you're fighting illness, you're tired. And so let that be where that person needs to be. Don't expect too much out of them,
yes.
right? We had people, I used to put signs up on doors for families that said, 5-minute visits max.
Yeah, and don't go to
Jill,
entertain.
love Jill, the social worker, right? And then if it was someone they wanted longer, they could, but it gave them reason to throw everybody else out.
Yes.
It looked like a medical order. It wasn't. Our doctor would have backed me up, but it was necessary.
Whenever I make a hospital visit, my rule is no more than 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I find a polite way to go. I give them a little blessing, tell them that I'm glad I got to see them, let them know I love them. Because I don't want to take all their energy. Their body needs it to do what it needs to do. And that goes for whether someone's terminally ill or just sick in the hospital. That's, I found that to be well. And then if they want more, they'll say, well, can you stay a little longer? And then I honor that.
Right.
But I don't go in there so that they feel they have to entertain me.
Or make you feel bad about where they are in their world and what's
Right.
happening.
And particularly in a hospital setting, I'll be honest, when I'm in the hospital, I hate visitors. I don't like, because one, as vain as it sounds, I look awful. I know I look awful. And
And
I'm
there's stuff
embarrassed.
around you that you don't want them to see.
Exactly.
Right? There's nobody wants to have a whole lot of people entertaining them
And I,
in a hospital.
I don't want them looking at my pee-pee bottle.
Right.
That's personal.
When I've got someone in surgery, I don't want someone sitting next to me because that's my downtime and I need to be prepared to look for the doctor and jump when they come.
Yes.
You can check on me by text message and I will be happy to return it. And that comes from having been the wife who sat through so many things with so many times. You just need to be able to make your own space, whether you're the patient or the family, and it needs to be honored.
I also find it helpful if the person or the family has questions, listen carefully and answer the specific question with as short of answer as possible, concise, and not more than what they're asking. They know what they want to know. But the most important part I find, and I'm really interested in your input on this, is the listening part. Sometimes we ask questions because we just want to hear ourselves think out loud. And if you are a good listener for that, it gives that permission for them to in my case, have loosening of association. Our psych listeners will know what that means. But sometimes that's all they want.
They just want a space to do some talking. Yeah. They want to be able to work things out in their own head, but out loud. Mm-hmm. And they want a sounding board. The sounding board doesn't mean that you're responding. It means you might be nodding.
Right.
Or you might, a couple times. And then when they're finished talking, you can say something like, did you want some feedback? Otherwise, I'll just sit here with you.
Perfect response.
You don't have to offer it all. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell you, my wife is much better at that than I am. And I think that comes from her funeral director times because she sees people come in crisis and they're all talking over each other and she just waits for them all to do all the talk. And then, okay, so tell me what you've all decided here, right? And listen and discern.
You know, it's funny you say that because clergy were the worst. Because when you go in preaching,
yes,
you're not going in hearing. I had someone say to me a while back, a long time ago, and it's funny, I believe it was in Best Buy. So I was in there looking for some equipment. I'm in collar, and this guy came up to me, and he belonged to a different church basis. Saving souls, that's what it's all about. Saving souls for Jesus. And I looked at him and I said, if I knew how to save a soul, what would I need with Jesus? And he looked at me dumbfounded and then just kind of walked away kind of mad. And I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck. I was being sincere.
right.
My point of that, when you're going in here, people have their own relationship with their own understanding. And who in the heck am I to think that my understanding is better than their understanding? And I know what the relationship with God should be. That's
a
arrogant.
really big sore point for lots of people and families because there's divisions in families and everyone has an opinion and everyone has their own brand of faith.
Yes.
And they don't want to be told that they have to believe X, Y, or Z or say these words or do these things. And they also don't need their family members hearing that they're going to be going to a bad place after their death because they're not willing to do those things that somebody has appointed themselves the decider and determiner of all about.
Or if you ever want to see them again.
Right. Right. And those things sting and they come back. And don't say those things after they're dead either, folks. Please don't do that.
That's right. Well, it reminds me of this little boy is coming up to Christmas, and he wanted a bicycle for Christmas, and so his mother said, well, just write a little letter to baby Jesus to let him know. So he writes this letter, Dear baby Jesus, I really would like this bicycle for Christmas. If you do this for me, I will clean my room every day for the next year. He thinks, no, that's not good enough. So he tears it up, starts another one. Dear baby Jesus, I really would like this bicycle for Christmas. If you get me this bicycle, I will help Mom with the dishes. No, that's not good enough either. So finally he gets out the last piece of paper that says, Dear baby Jesus, please ask Santa to bring me this bicycle for Christmas. If you do, I'll be good to my little brother all year long. He says, oh, that's it. So he puts it down there, goes to bed. Middle of the night, he wakes up, runs downstairs, crumbles up the note, grabs the Madonna, the statue of Mary, gets a cloth sack, puts the statue in there, ties it up, and says, Dear baby Jesus, if you ever want to see your mother again.
I love that. The BVM. I'm holding her hostage.
That's right. That's right. Folks, lighten up. It's a joke.
You got to laugh, especially when you do the work that Father John does and that I do. You have to laugh. And in fact, I teach therapists that you're supposed to be able to laugh when you're doing grief therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're one of the few people who looks at them and allows them to laugh.
Yes.
Because otherwise you're breaking rules.
And if you're just going to be stoic, just make a cardboard cutout and leave it there.
And don't make that face. That's the other thing. Don't make the face. And you all know the face. The face that you get when you tell someone that someone you love has died. And they all make that face. And that face says, I'm not allowed to smile.
Right.
And I'm supposed to make you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make the face. Don't make it for the dying person, and don't make it for the family afterward.
Yeah.
Give them hope and give them support.
It also means don't talk to me about it.
Right? Right? And don't make me feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things I and I know we're talking about things to say, but also things not to do. And this is going to irritate a lot of evangelicals, but I have a real gift for that. At the funeral, do not get up and make people do the sinner's prayer when they have open sharing about the loved one. They open it up for sharing because they want to hear your memories about their loved one. And I've gotten to the point where I have to warn families when they ask me if I'll open it up during the service. I said, you know what? I want to do what you want me to do. And let me give you a heads up. There's some people who've been taught poorly that they think this is an opportunity that they're going to save everyone because they think they're the only one in the room that knows Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or whatever it is. But they're going to get up and ask everyone to come join them and say the sinner's prayer. And it's tacky.
It's tacky, it's intrusive, it's invasive, and it
it's
takes away
dishonest.
from the memorial to the person who died. I actually advocate that families allow open mic after the service at whatever gathering there is. No open mic at the funeral.
Well, you and I are on the same page with that one. There's no question about it. But there'll be people right now listening that heavily disagree with us.
Oh, of course.
But it's okay to disagree with us. Just know we're right.
And we've been there and done that.
I even have the T-shirt.
Right?
Well, the shirt with the collar. Last thing in our last couple minutes. Just if you say that you're there for them, let them know that you see them. Not just with your words, with your presence.
I see your heart.
Exactly. And there are times to be gentle. There are times to laugh. There are times to shut the heck up.
Mm-hmm.
All of it should be done with the same thing called love. I wrote on Facebook last night that love, when done right, is a verb.
Absolutely. And it should be done actively at all times.
Absolutely. And Frank's looking at me like we're getting to the end here. I'm going to cut you off with the NBC thing. But my guest this evening has been Jill
Johnson Young,
yeah.
LCSW.
No, I got a bubble.
Oh, you got a bubble in there. I thought you were having one of those moments.
No, I'm still recovering from the heart surgery.
Yeah, he's supposed to be in bed, folks.
And yeah, but I don't know anyone who wants to go with me. And but anyhow, there's a letter. But the point being, you've been a wonderful guest. I hope you'll get her book, The Rebellious Widow. It's a worthwhile reading. Great wisdom. But more important, if no one told you this week that they love you, let me be the first. And I thank you that you tune in. Next week, my friend Father Mark is going to be with me, and we're going to talk about the importance of spiritual direction.
Oh, that's awesome.
So be well, and thank you for your prayers for my recovery. We'll see you next week. God bless.